Hello and welcome to the Oddschecker betting show. I'm your host, George Elek, and this is the Guineas preview ahead of a great couple of days racing at Newmarket. The 2,000 Guineas, the 1,000 Guineas, and plenty other cracking racing either side of them as well. And it's just me and one guest today for this preview, but it is the main man himself, Oddschecker's horse racing tipster, Andy Holding. Andy, very, very good to have you here. Just the two of us, a bit lonely on this Skype call, but ahead of a pretty exciting weekends racing. It's the weekends racing that I kind of dream about in those dark winter months ahead of the flat season.
Yeah, it's a fantastic Guineas. The 2,000 Guineas is anyway. The 1,000 Guineas probably hasn't got the stellar feel that we were hoping for. Obviously, pretty gorgeous, doesn't make the gig, but pretty much anyone who's anyone has turned up for the 2,000 Guineas, and that's going to take some sorting out. I'm looking forward to that. Probably more so than in any race recent times, because I genuinely feel as though we've got a field assembled there where probably 5 or 6 could lay claim to be a champion miler this season if they stamp their authority on a race of this nature and then go forward for the rest of the season. So that is about as good as it gets with regards to 3-year-old milers.
Yeah, we're going to be covering that fairly soon. But before we get into the actual racing itself, how's your records in the 2,000 and 1,000 Guineas? You backed the winner last year, didn't you, in with Kamiko?
Kamiko, yeah. To be honest, not that bad.
You sound surprised.
I'm sort of just trying to recollect the ones I've backed. I've just actually dragged it up to see how well I have done. I backed Kamiko. I didn't back Night of Thunder. I think I was unlucky in that year. I think I backed the second. That good horse of John Gosden's that got beat by Night of Thunder.
Yeah.
That should have won and then was unbeaten throughout the remainder of his career. I'd say patchy along the way. Patchy. I don't seem to have jumped on many of the Aidan O'Brien horses. It's taken me a little while to work out that Aidan O'Brien is mustard in this race.
Well, anyone who hasn't listened should go back and listen or watch. We did a Horses to Follow piece a week or so ago, Andy, and it's fair to say that you gave some pretty extensive thoughts on some Aidan O'Brien horses there. So do go and check that out if you haven't already. Do also download the Oddschecker app. It's where you get the best prices, which we'll be talking through today, the best bookie offers as well, free bets. And also you can get the best place terms, because there are going to be a few of these major meetings. There are always a couple of firms who stick their neck out and give you an extra place here or there, or maybe even two. So imperative that you download the Oddschecker app, imperative that you subscribe to the Oddschecker Betting Show podcast channel, and imperative that you subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel, where you can find plenty more content from Andy and myself and many others that we get on board for these previews as well, with loads more to come throughout the flat season and through other sports as well. So do all of those things. Now that I've done my spiel, we can get on to the racing. And the way we're going to do this, because we're going to cover both days in one kind of 40-odd minute podcast or video. We're going to just do the group racing in depth, and then at the end of each day I'll just ask Andy if he's got anything to flag in any of the handicaps or the other races on the day, and I'm pretty sure all the maidens, and I'm pretty sure that he probably will. So we'll get to that when we get there. But kicking off then with the Betfair Palace House Stakes in the 225 at Newmarket. This is on Saturday. At time of recording is about 1 o'clock on Friday, so we're about 25 hours ahead of race time here. And Lazuli is the 11-4 favourite ahead of Came from the Dark at 5-1. Garris and Judicial are both 11-2. Emirati Anna 17-2. Arecibo 9-1. Al Jardi 11-1. Dubai Station 16-1. Glamorous Anna 33-1. Now this is one of the few races where we're going to get our money's worth in terms of place terms. The field sizes aren't ideal at Newmarket this weekend, but here we're getting 3 places in Sky Bet, despite there only being 9 runners already sticking their neck out and going 4 places, a fifth of 4. Andy, over to you.
Yeah, fascinating race to begin our podcast, George. Yeah, far above won this race last year, didn't he? On Guineas Day, and chasing him home was Judicial, who's going to be a popular choice. He's 9 years old now. Judy Camacho's gelding, but still remains as good as ever. We often find it with these sprinters that they can keep going for years and years, and if they've got the appetite, and he certainly has, I'm sure he'll run his race. He's bound to be trained to the minute. like he was last year. But I think he's in arguably just a deeper or choppier waters than he was 12 months ago. He's got Lazuli perhaps to beat as the number one choice. He comes off the back of getting beaten out in Dubai by that good sprint of Charlie Hills's Equilateral. I don't think that was at all a bad performance. Equilateral acquitted himself really well over in the desert throughout the winter. And he's a real strong traveller, isn't he, Charlie? Charlie, probably his charge. He often goes in behind the pace and quickens up really well. He has made the run in the past when he won at Sandown, but largely speaking, he wants a strong gallop to run at, as do many of these in this lineup. His odds are a little bit cramped, but you'd have to respect him. Ed Walker's doing really well with his sprinters at the moment as well, isn't he, George? You know, he's got a good collection of horses now to go to war with. For instance, Starman, he's number one ace in the pack to run in the big races such as the King's Stand or the Golden Jubilee. I imagine he'll start off in the Duke of York up at York at the Musidora meeting. And he's also got Great Ambassador as well, who's been well flagged up for races such as the Wokingham and perhaps further down the line the Goodwood Sprint race, the Stewards Cup. So Came from the Dark is another one to put on your list. He beat Garris at Newbury narrowly, but he looked a sprinter going in the right direction. But the one I'm going to fall down on the side of, he's got a little bit to fun on the ratings, but because he's the only course and distance winner in the field, and I was really taken with him on his debut for New Connections, is Arecibo, a horse much maligned and a horse that had probably one or two rude names attached to him by
hopefully not by you, Andy.
Members of the press and probably punters alike. Quite rightly so. He'd often chuck away races that he probably should have won when with previous connections, but he's gone with the sprinting king, hasn't he, Robert Cowell? He has an amazing record of turning base metal into gold with these kind of horses. And Tom Morley's owner, he's a very, very shrewd cookie. He works alongside me on William Hill Radio, and he's got a very good collection of sprinters in his midst. And this one, arguably, is his best prospect for the season. I'd imagine be outrunning his mark of 99 sooner rather than later. But I was really impressed with the way he quickened up to win here at the first meeting, the Craven meeting. He clocked a good time, and several of those that have run out of that racing behind him have either won or got placed in much better races subsequently. So I think the form is definitely worth noting. But look, he's fit as well. He's proven on fast ground. He's proven over the track. And he's just the kind of horse that Robert Cowell can continue to improve. Now he's got his head in front and he's got the confidence levels high. I could see him going and having a good season in sort of Group 3, Group 2 level. And at 9-1, not a bad each way price.
Yeah, absolutely. 9-1. You're getting Arecibo. That's with 888 Sport, Bet Victor, Unibet, and Boyle Sports. They're all 3 places. Sky Bet paying 4 places. And our 8-1 Arecibo, Tom Marquand, former oddschecker ambassador, booked. I think if you're anticipating a big season for Arecibo, I think we're all anticipating another big one for Tom as well. On then to the second race, we're going to be covering the race before the 2000 Guineas. It's the Betfair Exchange Jockey Club Stakes. And I mentioned the field size is just 5 run here. 5 run, and Pile Driver is the 9-4 favourite ahead of Saron Priestley at 5-2. Alzarakan is 11-4. Pablo Escobar 8-1. Thunderous 9-1. A trappy little race, Andy, but also a really, really interesting little one to try and solve.
Very much so, yeah. Again, another race that's brought together a small but select field. Majority of them are already proven at the highest level. Most notably, Pile Driver goes without saying. Third in the St Ledger at Doncaster towards the back end. I think he won the. Did he win the? What's the race at York now? The Voltigeur. I think he won the Voltigeur on route to that excellent run on Tower Moor. And he's now, I wouldn't say he's got different handling, but it's another one of these amalgamations, isn't it? William Muir's teamed up with Chris Grassick. We're seeing quite a bit of this now, aren't we? Thadian, John Gosden, Paul Cole and his son. A lot of them in the sort of keeping it in the family, but you get where I mean. And there's lots of joint trainership now. So he could have a really good season as a 4-year-old. But he does face a Mark Johnson horse that I think could be quite difficult to beat from the front. Mark Johnson won this race last year with Communique. He's also won it with Universal and Jukebox Jury. And those horses are of a similar ilk, i.e. they've got the stamina for 2 miles further down the line, but they've also got the tactical speed for 1.5 miles. And this fella beat Ocean Wind on his seasonal reappearance. Actually, it was his first appearance for 551 days, so that's nearly 2 years. Didn't make a jot of difference. He was fitting well, and he beat a horse who was race fit off having a run on the all-weather. Ocean Wind has subsequently gone on to run really well in the Sagaro behind the mighty Stradivarius. So the form collaterally is really strong, and I like the way he toughed it out from the front that day as well. He got not necessarily headed by Ocean Wind, but he certainly got joined, and he found plenty more for pressure. Now, I'll imagine in a small field, this is manna from heaven from Franny Norton to get the fractions right from the front. And if he can grab the Golden Highway over on the far side, or as it is, the stalls are down the centre, but I think they have to race around a bend here, don't they, before they join the main straight? I think it's 1.5 miles is where the track runs out and then goes off into the distance. I'd imagine he'll go on that far side rail and row his own boat from the front. So I think Ron Priestley, under today's conditions with match fitness on his side, he might just be able to get the better of Pile Driver and Pablo Escobar, not to mention Al Zarakan, who obviously comes here off the back of 3 straight wins on the all-weather.
So Sir Ron Priestley, 5-2 in this 5-runner field. That's pretty much across the board. And Andy's selection for the Jockey Club Stakes, which is the 3 o'clock on Saturday, and the race ahead of the 2,000 Guineas, which we'll get on to now. And we may have rattled through those first 2 races, but it's only because, Andy, I'm going to have to rein you in here because you're going to want to talk about a fair few of these. As you mentioned, a really exciting renewal of this great race. And Wembley is currently the 9-2 favourite. Wembley, a horse you spoke about on your horses to follow show a couple of weeks ago when Wembley was 7-1 best price. So now as short as 7-2 in places. Thunder Moon is 11-2. Mustabek 6-1 alongside Battleground. One Ruler drifted all the way back out. 17-2. Master of the Sea 10-1. Van Gogh 10-1. Poetic Flair all blue on oddschecker at the moment. 12-1. Chindit 16-1. Lucky Vega 22-1. 50-1 bar. And before we get into the races, the horses themselves, let's talk about the race, talk about the draw, because we need to talk about the draw bias here. For anybody who maybe doesn't know the track so well, doesn't know the race so well, what would you ideally be looking for in terms of your selection and where they're drawn?
Well, the last few years that they've tried to curb any kind of track bias by putting the stalls up the stand side rail and then having a cutaway around about the 3 furlong pole. So once they go past that cutaway, the track opens up, and if you're on the inside, you can get a run on the inside. If you're on the outside, you should be technically speaking working on a level playing field. But this year, to my knowledge, looking at the Racing Post anyway, the stalls are placed in the centre. So with 15 runners and a big wide open expanse of the Rowley Mile, and I think that we're dealing with fresh ground as well. This is going to be a fresh strip, not compared to the Craven meeting where they had a bit of a narrow funnel. This hasn't been run on since October. So I think the horses are going to go down the centre of the track. That's going to be the hope anyway. So we should get, in theory, a clean run race. Ideally, if they are going to go down the middle, you want to be drawn as closer to the middle to get some cover as possible. There is going to be pace on here. We've got a couple of natural front runners in Devil Waller and Naval Crown. So I don't think we're going to be struggling for a strong gallop here. So I think in general terms, we're looking at hopefully a cleanly run 2,000 Guineas. So yeah, that's the first information to get across before we start.
Well, the top end of the market is pretty front-loaded with high draws. You've got Wembley out of 8, Thunder Moon out of 10, Mustabek out of 12, Battleground out of 15. They're the top 4, so that could, well, I mean, we'll see how it plays out on the day, I guess. But Andy, let's start with Wembley. Now the favourites, and kind of, I guess you can repeat a bit of what you said to me 10 days or so ago.
Yeah, I apologise in advance for repeating or close to repeating what I've already mentioned about this horse to those that have looked at the 10 to follow list, which we did a few weeks back. But nothing really changes, in my opinion, in Wembley a few weeks on. No reason to desert him at this late hour. I still go on record to say he was the best horse in the Dewhurst, which to my eyes anyway, pound for pound is the best 2-year-old race of the season. Chindit's already proven that the race is as good as what I think, and Poetic Flair, who was just behind him, has also franked the form. And if you want to go further down, you can look at Tactical as well. He was 10th in the Dewhurst, and he's won so far this season. So we're dealing with a really good crop of 2-year-olds. But if you go back and watch that race, like I have several times, Wembley, he was badly drawn to start off with in stall 2 in an above average size. They don't normally have 14 runners for the Dewhurst, and he challenged right on the outside, forsaking and giving up a lot of ground to start with, and he had to come from a hell of a long way back just because of those that were drawn high went forward from their position, got the rail, and he was like right on the outside on the wing. And at one camera point when they went past, I think it was 3 out, 4 out, he must have been at least 10 lengths behind. So for him to only get beat 3/4 of a length by St Mark's Basilica with a better run through to outrun Thunder Moon, I thought was a stellar effort. Ryan Moore riding that day, so he's obviously had the position, or he's been in the position to ride this horse. So it has to be certainly a deal of significance that he's decided to ride him over St Mark's Basilica, or indeed Battleground, a horse that he's very familiar with as well. And the beauty about him as well, he's a hold-up performer, and he's drawn right in the middle in stall 8. So if they go straight down the middle, I'd imagine Ryan will be right at the back of the pack, or in the middle towards the back of the pack, getting loads of cover, plenty of pace on ahead of him, and he's on a horse that stays really well. He was unlucky not to win the National Stakes as well, albeit, he's got a bit to find with Thunder Moon that day. But again, if you look at that run, he got a terrible run through that day, and he was closing down Joseph O'Brien's horse over 7 furlongs. I think with an extra furlong, he probably would have won that race that day. So I think he's the right favourite. You've obviously got to hope that Aidan O'Brien's got him A1. No reason why he wouldn't. Aidan O'Brien's won this race loads of times with horses who haven't had a seasonal reappearance. So he's definitely my number one choice of all the Aidan O'Brien horses, and of all these potential horses going forward. So I'm really excited about Wembley for this race and for the rest of the season.
Would you be backing Wembley at the price at the moment? Your 9-2 is your standout price with Unibet, 4-1 with Hills, who are paying 5 places.
I've backed him at slightly bigger odds. I'm not going to say I've got an anti-post voucher, of 20-1 in my pocket. I haven't. I backed him in and around the point when I did the podcast. I think he was about 6-1 at that point. I think 9-2 is fair enough. As we look at it now, 9-2, 4-1. I think he's going to be there or thereabouts. My strategy is probably going to be to put up another one against, not necessarily against him, but just in case he doesn't get a clear run, because I've got a sneaky feeling that there's one here that's now, because of jockey bookings, going to be slightly overlooked. And I do think he's equally as talented as Wembley. So we'll get on to him in a second if you sort of tee me up.
Yeah, well, let's look at the jockey bookings. So Ryan Moore rides Wembley, Frankie Dettori is on Battleground, and Shawnee Heffernan is on Van Gogh. So yeah, that should do you okay. Who do you want to talk about next?
Well, I respect Battleground. I think he's a lovely horse. I think we'll see him equally effective over further. He's always looked as though he's going to make a good 3-year-old, although he had the physique as a 2-year-old to be ready there and then. Of course, his victory in the Cheshire was, which told you that last season. I've got a huge amount of time for Thunder Moon. I think a better ground will suit him than he did in the Dewhurst. He has to be a factor with Joseph O'Brien's horses going really well. Van Gogh, of course, is a Group 1 winner at 2. But I think the one that's going to be slightly overlooked because William Buick has overlooked him and decided to ride Master of the Sea.
I went the wrong way.
Is One Ruler.
Interesting.
A horse that I got clocking some phenomenal times last season. He's run when he got beat in the Flying Scotsman at Doncaster last season was an excellent effort on the figures. He then beat Van Gogh here over the Rowley Mile on ground I don't think he would have necessarily liked. And he was a very warm order, I don't know if you remember, for the Racing Post Trophy, or the Futurity as it is now at Doncaster. And he got beat by Max Swinney, but the ground was heavy that day, and I just think that just stretched him a little bit. Look, he ran really well in defeat. But it was no doubt for me he was the best horse in the race, and the ground did for him. But he's going to come here fresh and well. Apparently he's been working really well. And he's drawn right in the middle as well, and he's still 7. We know he acts on the rally mile, but I think the good ground's going to suit him better than most. And I'm not bothered for 1 minute that William Buick has decided to ride Master of the Seas. That was a little bit inevitable, the fact that Master of the Seas has given him that recency bias feel, because he's ridden him last time out when he won at the Craven meeting. But, James Dawes not a bad deputy, is he? And he's going to drift out because of that jockey booking, I think, to an almost unconsidered 9 or even maybe 10-1 tomorrow morning. But you shouldn't rule out this fella because he's got a packet load of talent. So, yeah, in short, 2 horses that run the track really well. One was unlucky in last year's Dewhurst. One was unlucky because of the ground in the Futurity. They both stay well, top yards. And we can get sort of 4-1, 9-2 the one, and maybe even 9-1 the other.
Yeah, One Ruler currently best price 17-2. That's with Bet Victory and Unibet. It was as short as kind of 7-2, 4-1 a few days ago. Apologies. I thought you were going to talk about the stick with the O'Brien horses, but you've done me over there. One Ruler, threw me a curveball. Any others at kind of bigger prices? I mentioned Poetic Flair, best price 12-1 now, but been backed over the last couple of days. Chinned it. A consistent performer and winner, 16-1. Can you see any of these crashing the party, or do you think that all the fun's going to be up towards the top end of the market?
No, I don't think Chindit's quite good enough, as the run in the Dewhurst indicates. He improved to win the Greenham, and I think the better ground will suit him better than the Dewhurst. So we need to make that fact known. And I think Poetic Flair also, he'll have to prove on his running the Dewhurst as well. They've got loads to find, these horses, on the ones I've talked about quite significantly. I think the only one that could be the unknown quantities Mutasabek, who was hugely impressive in winning his novice race at the Craven meeting. Look, he clocked a good time. His sectionals were very good, but that was over 7 furlongs in a race where he bagged the stand side rail. I think it was a massive advantage to be over on the stand rail. And generally speaking, I always want to get against horses who win when there's a massive track bias and they look impressive, because when they haven't got a bias like he'll have on Saturday, it's going to make it life a lot difficult. Look, he's not proven in Group 1 company, so it's a big ask for him. I can't believe he's a shorter price, and a significantly shorter price than One Ruler. That's my way of thinking. Who's already proven at Group 1 company.
So the 2 to take on the field with for Andy Holding in the 2000 Guineas, Wembley, who's 9-2 best price at the moment, and One Ruler 17-2 as we record at 1 o'clock on Friday. It'd be really interesting to see what happens in the market over the next couple of days. 2 horses, probably the 2 biggest movers in the market over the last couple of weeks. Both of them moving into favouritism, both maybe easing out at the moment, but no reason to panic, according to Andy. James Doyle riding One Ruler, Ryan Moore riding Wembley. That brings us to the final race we're going to cover in detail on the Saturday, just doing the group races and the listed races over the weekend. But there's plenty of other decent racing around, Andy. Any others that people should be keeping an eye out in the others?
Yeah, there's a lovely race, the race after the Guineas, the 450, the Newmarket Stakes. It sees a clash between 2 horses that ran in very good races at the Craven meeting. One of them won, Mahafeth, and the other one is Secret Protector, who got beat. But he got beat by a horse who clocked the fastest furlong per furlong time of the entire 3-day Craven meeting in the shape of Highland Avenue. And that Fielden Stakes, if it works out as well as the race did last year, the race that Mishrif won, of course, who also clocked a big time, then I think we need to follow that race quite religiously. He came from the back of the field as well that day, Secret Protector. So I think he probably might just hold sway over Mahafeth, who's got a lot to find in the figures. He's only rated 92, but I think William Haggas is quite right to run this horse as listed company already and blow his potential handicap mark, because I think the numbers that he clocked at the Craven meeting suggest he is definitely going that way. So I think that's an interesting little matchup between the 2. And also keep an eye on Great Ambassador as well. He was hugely impressive visually and on the clock when he won at Kempton on his debut for Ed Walker. And as I said at the top of the show, Ed Walker's got some really good sprinters in his midst this season. I've actually tipped one of his this afternoon on my oddschecker column called Peerless. I'm hoping he runs well. But he's got Starland, he's got Came from the Dark, and he's got this Great Ambassador. I think he's going to be aimed at the Wokingham. And this will probably tell us and perhaps tell him as well, Ed Walker, that he has got that right kind of horse, because it's all right winning on the all-weather, but you've got to go and now improve it on the grass. So if he comes through that test, which I expect him to do, then Ed Walker's got a live one, perhaps for Royal Ascot in Great Ambassador. So those two races, the other two races I'm looking forward to on Saturday.
Great Ambassador 5-2 with most firms in that 4:15 tomorrow. Tom Marquand on board again. On then to Sunday's racing, the 1,000 Guineas Day. And the first race we're going to discuss here is the Pretty Polly, the fillies listed race. And Ashari is the 15-8 favourite here, ahead of Seekerats at 9-4. Lady Hayes 7-1, Alba Rose 8-1, Mystery Angel 10-1, 11-1, Taslima, the Flying Ginger 25-1, and Forever Grateful are 100-1. So two at the top end of the market, Andy, a bit of a match at the top. Do you think the market's got this one right?
I can't believe how Seekerats is so short as she is. She was well touted on debut. Look, she ran an eye-catching race. Everyone could see that she was unlucky, probably might have won. But, I mean, that fillies race at Newbury was run at a right pedestrian gallop. The split times weren't that great. I mean, she's got to improve an amazing amount to even warrant winning it, let alone be 15-8 to win it. I think she's a shocking price. Alsari's just had the one run, which came at the July meeting, and I think there's a lot more strength in depth to that performance in beating a decent field that day. I'm not sure why we haven't seen her since, and obviously the ground's a slight question mark, as it was soft that day, and she's going to be racing on good to firm ground on Sunday. But I think she's a better prospect at this stage than perhaps Seekerats. And I do think there's a good chance that Lady Hayes will outrun her odds as well. She got bogged down in very soft ground, if you remember, at Deauville towards the back end of the season. But her two victories at Salisbury and Haydock previous to that were very good on the figures. She scrambled down a little bit when she was a big odds on chance at Haydock, but her form of that Salisbury win worked out really well. And with the dead 8 runners, if they all go to post, I think Lady Hayes is easily the value pick of that field. So I'll be looking to perhaps get with her if that price holds up.
Lady Hayes 7-1. That is with 888 Sport, and Bet Victor, the one for Andy, in the Pretty Polly, the listed fillies race over a mile and 2 furlongs. That's the 2:25 on Sunday. On to the 3 o'clock, which is the Betfair Dahlia Stakes, run over a mile and 1 furlong. Queen Power is the 9-4 favourite here with Sylvester de Souza on board. Lavender's Blue 4-1, Forat 6-1 alongside Posted. Lady Bowthorpe and Freya both 10-1, 16-1. Indie Angel Norma 33-1. 8 run here, Andy. Queen Power the favourite just ahead of Lavender's Blue. Yeah,
the standard bearer in many respects, Queen Power, but she's just a difficult horse to win with, isn't she? I mean, you can see that by her form figures. Loads of times had fancied chances and just hasn't been able to put it away, which always leaves me a little bit cold when I'm looking at staring down a barrel of taking 9-4 about a horse like that. Lavender's Blue, similar horse to her, similar horse rated wise, running the same kind of races. At least she knows how to win, and she comes off the back of a win first time out at Kempton. So her well-being is already proven. I think Amanda Perrett's made a better start this season than she did last year's campaign. So I think she's probably a little bit more reliable of the two at this stage. As regards a bet, again with a dead 8 runner race, I'm quite interested in this race. I'd probably look towards Lady Bowthorpe, also I think was probably a little bit of an unsung hero last season. She won at big odds at Ascot last year, but did it really well, clocked a massive speed figure, and then went to Sandown next time out and didn't get the run of the race. In the race, it was won by Memora. She was at the back, and he couldn't make ground from the back, and she didn't get the clearest to run through beyond Nazif on Champions Day in the Sun Chariot. But that was a Group 1 race against the likes of Champs-Élysées and Cloak of Spirits, horses that would probably be short price favourite to win this race on Sunday. So because she's trained by William Jarvis, I think we're getting probably a better value in this horse, where I think she probably deserves to be a little bit more given a bit more respect. So yeah, I'm seeing 10-1 flash up in front of my eyes for Lady Bowthorpe. Can you confirm that, George?
I can. Yeah, Paddy Power, 888 Sport, Betfair Sportsbook, and Bet Victor, and a couple of others too.
Yeah, Dead 8 runners, Lady Bowthorpe. She'll do for me there.
Lady Balthorpe, 10-1, as I just mentioned there, with Kieran Schumacher on board for William Jarvis, as Andy says. Straight then into the 1,000 guineas, the big one on Sunday, and Santa Barbara is now the 5-4 favourite. Santa Barbara 5-4 after Pretty Gorgeous was confirmed a non-runner this morning after a dirty scope. Alcohol free for Andrew Balding, 15-2. If you want to hear more about alcohol free, do go and check out the oddschecker YouTube page. I went down to his yards and we had a great day with him talking about Cameco last season, his other hopes ahead of this season, and alcohol free certainly right at the very top. And there seemed to be a bit of quiet confidence, not over exuberant confidence, but some quiet confidence about alcohol free coming into this. Andy, I know you've got some thoughts on how alcohol free season might pan out. Sacred is 8-1. That's with Betfair, but as short as 4-1 with Paddy Power and Betfair Sportsbook, which could be a sign of things to come. Saffron Beach 9-1, Mother Earth 9-1, Statement 14-1, 20-1 bar. Andy, over to you.
Yeah, I don't think Aidan O'Brien has quite got the dominance in this race that he has in the 2,000 guineas. So there's always the potential for an upset here. And it would be a big shock, I think, to those that are closely associated with the Ballydor camp if this filly got beat, this Santa Barbara. The noises coming out of the camp are very, very seductive, aren't they? You know, Baden's are saying it's the best, she's been working the best he's ever seen a filly at this time of year. Some of the work that she's been doing has been quite scary. Now, it all depends if you are sucked into that hype. If you are, then you're a very brave man to be taking 5-4, which is what we're looking at the very moment in time. It's not the kind of horse I want to be backing, or not kind of the bet I want to be taking. It's not necessarily got nothing against Santa Barbara as a horse and what she's potentially capable of. Just one of those races where I'll let her win at the price, George. Simple as that. She might be the next coming in, and if she wins this, then we can start lauding her as potentially a superstar further down the line. I will say that the Aidan O'Brien camp have a habit of hamming up these horses because of the breeding shed prospects. They want to make them into a champion before they've even set foot on the racetrack. So let's see what she can do. Just looking at her form and her time figures at the Curragh, it's certainly not a race that you get carried away about and thinking, oh yeah, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th has won. Yeah. The race hasn't worked out very well. She was very impressive, but you've got to put it into context. That said, I don't think this is a Stella Guineas. I don't think we're looking at genuine milers here. We're looking at horses like Alcohol Free, like Sacred from last season, who are proven over sprint distances, 6 furlongs, that in and around that. They've both won over 7 as a 2-year-old, so at least they've proven that they get beyond 6. But whether they get a stiff run, strong run mile, in particular Alcohol Free, is very much open to the question from my point of view. At least Sacred's proven over the track. With Alcohol Free, I can't work out whether it was lack of a run which prevented her from being ultimately impressive in the Fred Darling, or whether it was lack of stamina that caused her to almost stop quite abruptly. Look, she got the job done, but I don't know what the vibes are out of Andrew Balding's yards. You've been down there, but to me, she looks like a sprinter. She's always looked like a sprinter last season. She got brazen pace. It's going to be very difficult, in my eyes anyway, for her to get the extra distance on Sunday.
It's one of the few times I can add some insight, Andy. But I asked Andrew, on air, so it's not as if it was you could probably see it in the video, if he had any concerns about Alcohol Free making the trip, and he said, you can never be confident whenever you step a horse up like this in that kind of company. It's always a bit of a shot in the dark. But he certainly felt like she had a reason to come on for that last run, and I think, from speaking to stable staff and people at the yard and stuff, I think I don't think they are expecting to go there and win, but I think they're expecting her to put in a good account of herself.
I think it's worth the roll of the dice. Look, there's only one Guineas, and look, a Galliant 2nd, 3rd, 4th in the Guineas is certainly not going to be a bad thing on your CV. And I think from knowing a breeder perspective, it's always very enticing to have a go at it. I can see why you'd have a shot, but my gut feeling is that Alcohol Free probably won't stay the trip.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking more Commonwealth Cup further down the line. I think she'll end up being a 6 furlong sprinter, and I'll stand by that until proven wrong. with regards to having a bet in the Guineas, I'd probably have a bet without the favourite because you just don't know what you're up against.
Yeah.
But going back and watching the Fred Darling again, the one that said to me anyway that she was going to be more than a mile in the 7 furlong horse was Vadream. I'd fancy her to turn the form around with alcohol free and statement over a stiff mile. I think Jamie Spencer will ride her with a view to finishing placed.
Yeah.
He'll
ride her the only way he knows, won't he?
Of course he will. But I think that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
He rode a Chile in Newbury and he just got on the wrong side of the track. She was drawn towards the stand side of the rails because that's the only place he could end up challenging. And he was on the slowest ground and he was closing at the finish. I think if you'd run it for an extra furlong, she would have probably nearly won. So I've come away from that race thinking if her dream runs in the 1,000 Guineas, I'm prepared to back her for a place, or as it will be on Sunday without the favourite. We might get sort of 8, 10 to 1 without the favourite. I don't think those markets have opened up yet, but no. She's 20, 25 to 1 all in. You know, you've got the likes of Mother Earth, Sacred, Saffron Beach, Statement, Alcohol Free, Feather over ahead of her, all in the betting. So she's going to be one of the outsiders anyway, and she's going to be one of the outsiders in the without the favourite market. But yeah, I like what I saw at Newbury, and she's having to a fair bit of improvement. I'm not saying she's going to win, but I'll be disappointed if she doesn't confirm the impression she showed at Newbury and at least gets closer to those horses that beat her that day.
Yeah, often Charlie Fellows do come on pretty quick as well, and I'd be over the moon if Charlie were to find himself somewhere in the winners' enclosure at least on Sunday at Newmarket. Andy, that brings, unless there's any others you want to flag up in the 1,000 Guineas, otherwise we'll move on to any other business.
No. I think we've covered everything, to be honest. Yeah. It's any other business job, I think.
Great. In which case, we've got a few, small fields again on Sunday, but a few interesting races. Zabeel Champion running early on in the handicap. A couple of others. Any you're looking to flag up at this? It's an early stage. We're 48 hours before race day.
Yeah, I won't want to be giving too many away on Sunday, just in case I need a few up my sleeve for the column. There is a nice horse potentially for further down the line called Rodrigo Diaz. He'd be a horse I'd suggest to the listeners of this podcast to follow throughout the rest of the season. I'll be pretty damn sure that he's going to outrun his mark at the moment of 83. He was a horse actually I was looking forward to perhaps running in that big handicap towards the back end of the year. That I think it's running in October, isn't it? It's usually maximum field. It was a race that Trushan won 2 years ago.
Yes,
I can't remember it. I think it was a thing of Mark Johnson's that won it last year. But it's always very well contested. And this horse was entered up to run in that race, and he didn't run. And I was surprised. I thought that was odd. And he didn't run in any other race towards the back end of the season. Largely, I think, due to the fact that we had an exceptionally wet autumn stroke. Early winter, and he wouldn't want the ground to be as soft as it ended up being. So they've roughed him off. Now they've brought him back here at Newmarket off a rating of 83. I'm not sure whether Jamie Spencer can get down to ride 8 stone 3. So that's the reason why he's not reunited with the horse. But they've got Sylvester de Souza. So that tends to suggest to me anyway, that they mean business with this on Saturday. They've got him pretty much where they want him. It wouldn't be the end of the world if he got beat, because look, he's a Dave Simcock horse, and Dave Simcock wouldn't necessarily have his horses wound up first time out at this time of year. But he is a very, very smart horse, I think, in the making. He's a beautiful floater. He floats across the ground quick. He'll definitely want fast ground throughout the season. The Rodrigo Diaz, definitely one to watch to see how he gets on Sunday, with a view to following him for the rest of the season.
Rodrigo Diaz 7-2. That is a Paddy Power and Betfair Sportsbook. For the 150, the back and lay on Betfair Exchange handicap on Sunday at Newmarket. That brings us to a close for this Guineas preview. Plenty of insight there from Andy. Hopefully a couple of winners in there too. So please do download the oddschecker app for the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, place terms, and the very best tipsters as well. All of Andy's tips in his column every morning on the app. The best and first place to find it there. As I mentioned at the top of the show, please do subscribe to the podcast channel on all podcast providers, the Oddschecker Betting Show, the Oddschecker Betting Podcast, and also subscribe to the Oddschecker YouTube channel as well for all of these previews. Loads of other stuff in there as well. I'll chat with Andrew Balding. We've got loads of interesting features coming up soon, so do subscribe to that. do enjoy the racing. Follow Andy's tips. Read his column. It's going to be a belter. And please do gamble responsibly.